Hi, second grade. All right, you ready? We're going to continue in James and the Giant Peach. Today we are starting on chapter 23. Last we heard the peach is starting to climb toward the heavens. The 502 seagulls that they use the earthworm as live bait to capture and loop the string around that was made by Miss Spider and the silkworm, all the string that they needed, all the thread, they have caught these seagulls, 502 of them, and the peach is slowly rising up out of the ocean away from the sharks, and they are now safe. So here we are, chapter 23. In a flash, everybody was on top of the peach. Oh, isn't it beautiful? They cried. What a marvelous feeling. Goodbye, sharks. Oh boy, this is the way to travel. Miss Spider, who was literally squealing with excitement, grabbed the centipede by the waist, and the two of them started dancing round and round the peach stem together. The earthworm stood up on its tail and did a sort of wriggle of joy all by himself. The old green grasshopper kept hopping higher and higher in the air. The ladybug rushed over and shook James warmly by the hand. The glowworm, who at the best of times was a very shy and silent creature, sat glowing with pleasure near the tunnel entrance. Even the silkworm, looking white and thin and completely exhausted, kept creeping up out of the tunnel to watch this marvelous ascent. Ascent, as we know from Bible this past week, is like ascension, which is when Jesus rose up and went into heaven. Ascend means to go up, descend means to go down. So they are on the miraculous ascent, which means the peach is rising high into the sky. There's a connection for you. Kiss your brain if you caught that. Up and up they went, and soon they were as high as the top of a church steeple above the ocean. I'm a bit worried about the peach, James said to the others as soon as all the dancing and shouting had stopped. I wonder how much damage those sharks have done to it underneath. It's quite impossible to tell from here. Well, why don't I go over the side and make an inspection, Miss Spider said. It'll be no trouble at all, I assure you. And without waiting for an answer, she quickly produced a length of silk thread and attached the end of it to the peach stem. And real quick, here is what's happening right now. Isn't that beautiful? My goodness, that's beautiful. I love it. To the end of the peach stem. I'll be back in a jiffy, which means very quickly, she said. And then she walked calmly over the edge of the peach and jumped off, paying out the thread, letting out a little at a time behind her as she fell. The others crowded anxiously around the place where she had gone over. Wouldn't it be dreadful if the thread broke? The ladybug said. There was a rather long silence. Are you all right, Miss Spider? Shouted the old green grasshopper. Oh, yes, I'm all right. Thank you, her voice answered from below. I'm coming up now. And up she came, climbing foot over foot up the silk thread, and at the same time tucking the thread back cleverly into her body as she climbed past it, as spiders can. Is it awful, they asked her? Is it all eaten away? Are there great holes in it everywhere? Miss Spider clambered back onto the deck, which means climbed, and I picture clambering being kind of awkwardly. I don't know, I picture clambering. Back onto the deck with a pleased but rather also puzzled look on her face. And we know puzzled means very kind of confused look. You won't believe this, she said, but actually there's hardly any damage down there at all. The peach is almost untouched. There are very few tiny pieces out of it here and there, but nothing more. You must be mistaken, James told her. Of course she's mistaken, the centipede said. I promise you I'm not, Miss Spider answered. But there were hundreds of sharks around us. They churned the water into a froth, and we know churning means to mix wildly. We saw their great mouths opening and shutting. Well, I don't care what you say, Miss Spider answered. They certainly didn't do much damage to the peach at all. Then why did we start sinking, the centipede said. Perhaps we didn't start sinking, the old green grasshopper suggested. Perhaps we were all so frightened that we simply imagined it. This, in point of fact, was closer to the truth than any of them knew. A shark, you see, has an extremely long, sharp nose, and its mouth is set very awkwardly underneath its face and a long way back. This makes it more or less impossible for it to get its teeth into a vast, smooth, curving surface such as the side of a peach. And we know the peach is the shape of a sphere from math. Even if the creature turns onto its back, it still can't do it because the nose always gets in the way. If you have ever seen a small dog trying to get its teeth into an enormous ball, you can easily imagine about what it might have looked like for the sharks to try to bite the peach. It just would not have worked. It must have been some kind of magic, the ladybug said, because I'm sure that that's not the case. The holes must have healed up by themselves. Oh, look, there's a ship below us, shouted James. Everybody rushed to the side and peered over. None of them had ever seen a ship before. Looks like a big one. It's got 3 funnels. You can even see the people on the decks. Let's wave to them. Do you think they can see us? Neither James nor any of the others knew it, but the ship that was now passing beneath them was actually, listen to the name, you'll need to know this, the Queen Mary, sailing out of the English Channel on her way to America. And on the bridge of the Queen Mary ship, the astonished captain was standing with a group of his officers, all of them gaping, which means staring in amazement, at the great round ball hovering overhead. "I don't like it," the captain said. "Nor do I," said the first officer. "Do you think it's following us?" "Oh, dear," said the second officer. "I tell you, I don't like it," muttered the captain. "It could be dangerous," the first officer said. "That's it," cried the captain. "It's a secret weapon." "Holy cats! Send a message to the Queen at once. The country must be warned, and give me my telescope." The first officer handed the telescope to the captain. The captain put it to his eye. "There's birds everywhere," he cried. "The whole sky is teeming with birds. What in the world are they doing? And wait a second. There are people on it. I can see them moving. There's do I have this darn thing focused right? It looks like a little boy in short trousers." Here they are, trying to figure out what on earth it is that they are looking at up there in the sky floating above the Queen Mary ship coming out of the English Channel to America. "Yes, I can distinctly see a little boy in short trousers standing up there. And there's a sort of giant ladybug." "Now, just a minute, Captain," the first officer said. And a colossal green grasshopper." "Captain," the first officer said sharply. "Captain, please. And there's also a mammoth spider." "Oh dear, he has been doing silly things again. I think he's got a fever," whispered the second officer. "And a simply enormous centipede," screamed the captain. "Oh boy, call the ship's doctor," the first officer said. "Our captain is not well." A moment later, the great round ball disappeared into a cloud, and the people on the ship never saw it again. Chapter 24. But up on the Peach itself, everyone was still happy and excited. "I wonder where we'll finish up this time," the earthworm said. "Who cares?" they answered. "Seagulls always go back to the land sooner or later." Up, 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 higher they went, high above the highest clouds. The Peach swaying gently, we know swaying means side to side, very gently, from side to side, as it floated along. "Wouldn't this be the perfect time for a little music?" the ladybug asked. "How about it, green grasshopper?" "Oh, with pleasure, dear lady," the old green grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. "Oh, hooray, he's going to play for us," they cried, and immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician, and the concert began. From the moment that the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound, and as for James, never had he heard such beautiful music as this. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and he had always liked the noises that they made. But this was a different kind of noise altogether. This was real music, chords and harmonies and tunes and all the rest of it. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing on. It was like a violin. It was almost exactly as though he were playing upon a violin. The bow of the violin, the part that moved, was his back leg. The strings of the violin, the part that made the sound, was the edge of his wing. He was using only the top of his back leg, the thigh, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the same easy flowing action. It was precisely the way a clever violinist would have used his bow, and the music came pouring out and filled the whole great blue sky around them with magical melodies. When the first part was finished, everyone clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, "Bravo, bravo, encore, please give us some more." "Did you like that, James?" the old green grasshopper asked, smiling at the small boy. "Oh, I loved it," James answered. "It was so beautiful. It was as though you have a real violin in your hands." "A real violin," the old green grasshopper cried. "Good heavens, I like that, my dear boy. I am a real violin. It is part of my own body." "But do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same way you do?" James asked him. "No," he answered, "not all. If you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have two short feelers coming out of my head. Can you see them? There they are. They are quite short, aren't they? That's why they call me a shorthorn, and we shorthorns are the only ones who play our music in violin style, using a bow. My long-horned relatives, the ones who have long, curvy feelers coming out of their heads, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their top two wings together. They are not violinists, they are wing rubbers, and a rather inferior noise, which means not as good. The wing rubbers produce too, if I may say so myself. It sounds like more of a banjo than a fiddle. How fascinating this all is, cried James. And to think this, up until now, I had never even wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds. My dear young fellow, the old green grasshopper said gently, there are a whole lot of things in this world of ours that you probably haven't started wondering about yet. Where, for example, do you think I keep my ears? Your ears? Why, in your head, of course. Everyone burst out laughing. You mean you don't even know that? Cried the centipede. Try again, said the old green grasshopper, smiling at James. You can't possibly keep them anywhere else. Oh, can't I? Well, I give up. Where do you keep them? Asked James. Right here, the old green grasshopper said. Right on the side of my tummy. What? It's not true. Well, of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see where my cousins, the crickets and the katydids, keep theirs. Where do they keep them? In their legs. One on each front leg, just below the knee. You mean you didn't know that either? The centipede said scornfully, teasing James. You're joking, James said. Nobody could possibly have ears in his legs. Why not? Well, because it's ridiculous. That's why, said James. Well, you know what I think is ridiculous, the centipede said, grinning away as usual. I don't mean to be rude, but I think it's ridiculous to have ears on the side of one's head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror someday and see for yourself. Pest, cried the earthworm. Why must you always be so rude and rambunctious to everyone? You ought to apologize to James at once. Chapter 25. James didn't want the earthworm and the centipede to get into another argument, so he said quickly to the earthworm, Tell me, do you play any kind of music? No, but I do other things. Some of which are really quite extraordinary, the earthworm said, brightening. Such as what? Asked James. Well, the earthworm said, next time you stand in a field or in a garden and look around you, just remember this, that every grain of soil upon the surface of the land, every tiny little bit of soil that you see has actually passed through the body of an earthworm during the last few years. Isn't that wonderful? It's not possible, said James. My dear boy, it's a fact. You mean you actually swallow soil? Like mad, the earthworm said proudly, in one end and out the other. But what's the point? What do you mean, what's the point? Why do you do that? We do it for the farmers. It makes the soil nice and light and crumbly so that things will grow well in it. If you really want to know, the farmers couldn't do without us. We are essential. We are vital. All of those words mean important. So it is only natural that the farmer should love us. He loves us even more, I believe, than he loves the ladybug. The ladybug, James said, turning to her. Do they love you too? I am told that they do, the ladybug answered, modestly, blushing all over. In fact, I understand that in some places the farmers love us so much that they go out and buy live ladybugs by the sackfuls and take them home and set them free in their fields. They are very pleased when we have lots of ladybugs in their fields. But why? James asked. Because we gobble up the nasty little insects that are gobbling up all the farmers' crops. It helps enormously, and we ourselves don't charge a penny for our services. Not a good, but a service. I think you're wonderful, James told her. Can I ask you one special question? Please do. Well, is it really true that I can tell how old a ladybug is by counting her spots? Let's see if it's true. Oh, no. That's just a children's story, the ladybug said. We never change our spots. Some of us, of course, are born with more spots than others, and we never change them. The number of spots that a ladybug has is simply a way of showing which branch of the family she belongs to. I, for example, as you can see for yourself, am a 9-spotted ladybug. That's important to remember. A 9-spotted ladybug. I am very lucky. It is a fine thing to be. It is indeed, said James, gazing at the beautiful scarlet shell with 9 black spots on it. On the other hand, the ladybug went on, some of my less fortunate relatives have no more than 2 spots altogether on their shells. Can you imagine that? They are called 2-spotted ladybugs, and very common and ill-mannered they are, I regret to say. And then, of course, we have the 5-spotted ladybugs as well. They are much nicer than the 2-spotted ones, although I myself find them a trifle too saucy for my taste. It's funny, they all have opinions about each other. But they are all of them loved? Asked James. Yes, the ladybug answered quietly. They are all of them loved. It seems that almost everywhere around here is loved. Everyone around here is loved. And James, how nice that is. Not me, cried the centipede happily. I am a pest, and I am proud of it. Oh, such a shocking, dreadful pest. Hear, hear, the earthworm said. But what about you, Miss Spider? Asked James. Aren't you also much loved in the world? Alas, no, Miss Spider answered, sighing long and loud. I am not loved at all, and yet I do nothing but good. All day, I catch flies and mosquitoes in my web. I am a decent person. I know you are, said James. It is very unfair the way we spiders are treated, Miss Spider went on. Why, only last week your own horrible Aunt Sponge flushed my poor dear father down the plunge hole in the bathtub. Oh, how awful, cried James. I watched the whole thing from the corner up in the ceiling, Miss Spider murmured. It was ghastly. We never saw him again. A large tear rolled down her cheek and fell with a splash on the floor. Here she is, sad. But it is not very unlucky to kill a spider. Is it not very unlucky to kill a spider? James inquired, looking around at the others. Well, of course it's unlucky to kill a spider, shouted the centipede. It's about the unluckiest thing anyone can do. Look what happened to Aunt Sponge after she'd done that. Bump. We all felt it, didn't we, as the peach went over her? Oh, what a lovely bump it must have been for you, Miss Spider. It was a bit satisfactory, Miss Spider answered. Will you sing us a song about it, please? So the centipede did. Thank you for the song. That was very nice, Miss Spider said. Now sing one about Aunt Spiker. Oh, with pleasure, the centipede said, grinning. Everybody clapped and clapped after the songs and called out for more songs from the centipede, who at once launched his favorite song of all. Once upon a time, when pigs were swine and monkeys chewed tobacco and hens took snuff and to make themselves tough, and the ducks said quack, quacko, quack, quacko, and porcupines drank fiery wines, and goats with tapioca and old Mother Hubbard got stuck in the... Look out, centipede, cried James. Look out! Huh, I wonder what's going on. We'll find out tomorrow. Bye.